Hi, everyone. It's Saturday, October 21st, 2023. I'm NCR Davis, author of For the Boys, the War Story of a Combat Nurse in Patton's Third Army. Please hit the subscribe button and think about being extra generous and hit the like button too, but only if you get something out of the information I'm sharing today. In last week's podcast, I said that it's my opinion that there's a great deal of irony surrounding the fact that we have access to more news than ever, and yet many of us feel that it's more difficult than ever to gather facts about issues. Often it seems that we're offered slivers of truth surrounding an issue and feel that it's up to us to hunt and peck in an effort to put many slivers of truth together in order to get a true picture of events. Also problematic is this in this digital age is the vast number of issues that flash before us. I mean, I'm one person. I refuse to fall victim to clicking on every issue that arises on any given day. So, part of my process for navigating the voluminous amounts of information is to limit myself to 3 issues per month. And those 3 issues have to connect in some way to my personal life. I don't mean to sound egocentric when I say this. It's just that I found that if I don't limit the news feeds that I follow, I get depressed over the number of issues that are vying for my attention. I had to come up with some way to limit the number of issues that I want to be fully versed on. Allow me to tell you a brief story as to why I've come up with this process. Leading up to the 2016 presidential election, one of my dearest friends was telling me about an afternoon in the fall in which he'd gone over to his neighbor's house to drink some scotch and smoke a cigar. The perfect sort of ambiance for a political discussion. Now, my friend's neighbor said, "Oh, I'm just going to tell you flat out that I'm voting for Trump. End of story." My friend was a bit taken aback by this since he'd known the neighbor for years and knew the guy always voted Democrat. So my friend was perplexed. He had to know why. The neighbor said, "Oh, one word, abortion. I don't believe in abortion. And if Hillary gets in there, Roe versus Wade will surely be codified." My friend then asserted a big dose of logic that I thought was brilliant. He said to the neighbor, "But you're a 70-year-old man. How is it that the abortion issue is the one issue that's the deal breaker for you? Abortion doesn't affect your personal life. And I know for a fact that on most of the other issues regarding this presidential election, you share far more affinity with the Democrats' platform than the Republicans." The guy didn't disagree with my friend. "That's true," he said. "It's also true that abortion does not personally affect me as a 70-year-old man. But you forgot one thing. I'm Irish Catholic. I do not believe in the state allowing the murder of fetuses. My faith is very personal to me," he said. That story helped me to recognize a point that I want to stress to you today, 7 years later. Really think about your top 3 issues. What are they? And why are these issues so important to you? Do these issues match your personal demographic? Is one of the issues personal to you because of your faith? Really spend some time thinking about what issues truly are important to you and ask yourself why they're important. Next step. Stop assuming that traditional media with stellar historical reputations are to be taken as holy word. If you're following one newspaper or one news channel to glean information on the topics that are meaningful to you, I've got some news for you. There's no way you're getting a wholly accurate view of that topic. More than likely, you're getting a sliver of truth. I used to work for a newspaper. I know how they operate. Allow me to explain. When I worked at that newspaper, Their primary concern was how they were going to remain viable with the advent of the internet. The stats were already pointing to younger people not going to a newspaper for their primary source for news. Flash forward to social media, burgeoning to the primary place people got their news. What happens in a free market when people flock to a new technology for their information? Advertisers follow. As newspapers began to lose their primary source of income that came from advertising, they had only one other source of income from their subscribers. So they quickly had to change direction and make up for their loss of revenue from advertisers who had moved to spending much more of their advertising budgets on social platforms like Facebook. These newspapers began studying the demographics of their subscriber base. Secondly, they looked for ways to appeal to those subscribers. Culturally, newspapers traditionally were very divided in terms of the advertising department versus the news department. It was an ethical line that serious newspapers drew to keep themselves honest. The advertising department was not allowed to influence the news department in any way. But when money gets tighter, ethical lines tend to get blurred a bit. That's just human nature. Since around 2015, there's been a shift in focus that's based on the undeniable fact that newspapers could not remain viable unless they took a new approach. First, the major newspapers would have to increase their subscriber base, shift their revenue stream from their dependence on advertising sales to increased subscribers because their advertising revenue stream was diminishing. Second, they would need to appeal to that subscriber base by offering more news that those subscribers would emotionally react to. If this meant offering a sliver of facts or spending more news space on certain issues that they assume their subscriber demographics are more prone to be interested in, then so be it. More subscribers equals proof to their advertisers that they should still spend money with them. Stats would need to prove to those advertisers that media brand was still worth placing advertising in. Advertising revenue and subscribers are inextricably linked. Therefore, if you believe that you're getting the full news of a topic that is of particular interest or that you deem is important to your life, you are naive to go to one source as your be all and end all. You'll be getting a sliver. Understand that and go searching accordingly for other slivers to get the whole picture of the topics near and dear to you. Now, you may be wondering, why is it this middle-aged lady so intent on offering steps to navigating the information landscape? Isn't she an author of a book on World War II? What's the connection? This is the connection. I wrote the memoir For the Boys to offer readers a female combat nurse's firsthand view of the European conflict because I owed it to all those female and male caregivers who served on the front lines. I owed it to them to be recognized because even World War II buffs haven't had access to a lot about that aspect of the war. It wasn't just the Allied soldiers who fought against tyranny during the early to mid 1940s. The combat nurses were soldiers too, and they were very cognizant that they were sacrificing their physical and emotional health to care for the fighting forces. Those nurses also knew how high the stakes were. If the Allies lost that war, tyranny would reign in Europe. Democracy had to win. Yes, the Allies won. And it's now the year 2023, and I see many people taking democracy for granted. I started this channel to connect history with the present, to connect the fight of the 1940s to today's fight. We cannot forget that democracy can be taken from us. The first step in fighting to save ourselves from tyranny is to be informed, because the uninformed are vulnerable to losing their freedoms. Yes, I want my listeners to buy my book so that they can recognize the enormous sacrifice that men and women willingly underwent to preserve freedom. But taking freedom for granted by wandering through your existence without truly knowing about issues is dangerous. So, do your part. If you enjoy your freedom, try these steps. 1, recognize that because information is too voluminous, you're going to get only slivers of truth. 2, jot down no more than 3 issues that are important to you. Follow information about those 3 issues for the next month. 3, go back to that recognition that I've told you about those slivers of truth, and do not depend on one media source to inform you. Next week, I'll offer some specific tips on how to dig for those slivers of truth. Please follow me. Go to my website, growyourmindwithncrdavis.com. Growyourmindwithncrdavis.com. Thanks for listening.